Whether it's a bag of holding or a handy haversack or even Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion, we need to talk about the joy of extra-dimensional spaces. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Geek Pantheon. I am Eric, and today we are going to do a how-to run / overview review video of the first adventure from Candlekeep Mysteries, The Joy of Extradimensional Spaces. If you want to see my full review on the entire book, I will put a link up there and down there to where you can go check that out so you get my overarching thoughts on all the adventures of the book as a whole. But my intention is to do a how-to-run video for each of the adventures included in Candlekeep Mysteries over the coming weeks. So you definitely want to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any of those. So before we get into the actual how to run section, let's talk about my overview / review of this adventure. So obviously this is a first level adventure and it's a fun romp. It's a good introductory adventure. I feel like if you're introducing the game to new players, it's really straightforward. It has a clear goal, and you won't get a whole lot of analysis paralysis from your players trying to figure out what's going on. Now, it does suffer from the only one solution mindset where the players are presented with a problem. There's only one way to solve it. The players are trapped in this mansion and they need to figure out a way to get out. There's only one way that that can be accomplished, through collecting the various books throughout the mansion. It does have some really fun monsters that I think would be a lot of fun for players to fight and engage with, including one iconic D&D monster. And it does have some puzzles that also keep things from getting too stale. I really like the use of puzzles and traps for low-level adventurers as a way of still having the game be engaging without the threat of a TPK. But if you are using this adventure as a launching point for a campaign, or at least a multi-adventure short campaign, versus just running it as a one-shot or as a one-off as the book obviously intends it to be, there are some tweaks that you may want to make the adventure have a better payoff, have more legs moving forward, introduce some more interesting plot hooks into it, which I'm going to go over starting now. So first off, we have the introduction / finding the book section. So as the adventure is written, it's a really simple, straightforward hook for this adventure. The party is representing this village that needs help. Maybe it's the village that the party members come from, or at least one party member that is currently under a curse, famine, drought, all that stuff. And the sage Matrius is the one that can fix it for them. So they've been sent to go track him down. He is in Candlekeep, so they head there. And they need to find Matrius. That is the inciting action of this adventure. It's fine, but especially if you're wanting this to be a launching off point for a grander story, it does leave a lot of potential plot hooks on the table. First off, Fistandia, the person who donated all of these books to Candlekeep, including her copy of The Joy of Extradimensional Spaces, with the command word that leads into the Mordenkainen's magnificent mansion that she's made a permanent spell. She's just kind of there, and because it was in her will, she has recently disappeared and is presumed dead. It's much more interesting to me to have her tied into the plot hook for the adventures. Maybe one of the party members knows Fistandia, has heard of her. Maybe a magic user has read some other books that she's annotated before. Or you could have a party member, or all the party members individually, and this is what brings them together, be named in her will. Like, they were left books from Fistandia. All of them know Fistandia in some capacity. You could cover that in session 0. And that brings them together and brings them to Candlekeep. And then Matrius has the books that they, like, Matrius went and collected all of these books and has them in the study room, and then took them with him into the mansion, presumably just to keep the thread from getting loose. So yeah, those are some other interesting ways that you could get the party hooked into this adventure outside of you must find Matrius. Because without any genuine curiosity about Fistandia or Freyat, Freyat could also be something that they are tied into. The other individual who created one of the homunculi that exist in the mansion. We'll get there. But so that's an option that you have. But if you go with just what's written in the adventure, you're going to potentially run into some issues, because once they find Matrius, they're done. It's only a general sense of curiosity that's going to keep them moving forward in this adventure as it's written. And that a lot of times isn't going to be enough. We'll get into the nitty gritty of that moment once we get to the foyer. But having there be more of a tie to Fistandia gets them interested in the mansion itself, in exploring the mansion, in learning about the mansion, which I think is a missing piece in the hook to this adventure of the party wanting to know more about this extra-dimensional space that was made permanent. And so I think that could be helpful of introducing those hooks before the adventure even starts. The next section is opening the portal. Now this has our first skill block. It says that it requires a DC 13 Arcana check to decipher Fistandia's shorthand to find the command word to open the portal, which is necessary for this adventure to happen. And it does also say if nobody passes the check, you can get an avowed from Candlekeep to come in and decipher it for them. But that can be kind of a bummer from a player standpoint, and additionally removes kind of their agency in that circumstance. So how I would do it, if somebody is proficient in Arcana, they can read the word. They know arcane shorthand. If you're proficient in Arcana, then presumably you can read arcane writing. So if somebody has the Arcana proficiency, let them just read it. If they don't, then incorporate the check. If you don't know anything about magic, you can try. You can see if you can put it all together. And if they do, then great, they eventually can proceed. If they fail at that point, then you as the DM can like hint to them, you just don't know enough about arcane writings and arcane shorthand to figure this out. And hopefully that will get at least one party member's wheels turning, like, hey, maybe the people that run this library with books on the arcane, they might know something about Arcana, and maybe they could help us translate this, and thereby giving the party agency and allowing them to make that call of, oh, I bet one of the librarians can help us. And then the adventure can proceed at that point. But yeah, just having it be a skill check, and if they fail, then an NPC steps in. Yeah, I would tweak it a little bit, and you could still just alter the nature of the NPC stepping in into what I described and keep the check as is. But I like the idea of, if it's vital for the adventure to continue, just let them do it. Especially if one of them is proficient in Arcana, just let them do it. So I think this is a happy middle ground of still having a check in there if nobody is proficient in Arcana, and then playing it to where it allows them to have agency to move forward. Additionally, there's this timed portal mechanic. Once they've read the command word and the portal's open, where it says that it's clear that the portals will close within minutes. And the obvious intent there is to encourage the party to jump through the portal. Convincing players to jump through strange portals just because it's about to close might not work all the time. You might have party members go, no, I'm not. Why would I jump through it? Like, I don't know where this is going to lead. So some tweaks that I would make to this moment would be either having a note from Matrius, like somewhere, maybe his journal was left behind or something, saying, I found the command word and I'm going to say it and step through the portal that I have determined leads to Fistandia's magnificent mansion. And then the party can see that and go, okay, so it's safe to go through, and that's where Matrius went, so we need to go. Or you could have, if you go with the plot hook of a party member knows Fistandia, has a relationship, or all the party members do, then you could say, well, you know through your conversations with Fistandia or your correspondence or your readings on her work that this portal looks to be something that she would have created, once again, building that trust. If you don't want to go that route, you could also instead have them be teleported. Have it be a teleportation thing when the command word is said, to where, boom, you said it, everybody in the room is teleported into the mansion. Now, what happens with Matrius in that situation does require some tweaking that we'll get into once we get into the foyer section, but that's the other option that I would go with. Now, that does potentially make some players feel like they don't have any agency in that moment, but especially if you have players that haven't read this adventure, they're not going to know the difference. They just think they read a command word that causes a teleportation spell to kick off. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that, but just something to think about if you're going to make this change. Okay, now Fistandia's mansion, as an overarching section, one thing that I did want to touch on is the puzzle to get out. So the books are described as having the same portrait of Mordenkainen on the cover that Joy of Extradimensional Spaces has, and then a large letter on the spine of the book. The letters create the word liberty, which is the command word to get out of the mansion. So when you're describing Joy of Extradimensional Spaces, when the party is studying that to try to figure out what the command word is, be sure to describe the cover. Be sure to give those details on the cover of the portrait of Mordenkainen. Make this book something that you can reference later as like, that looks just like the book that got you in here. However, there may be a temptation to put a large J on the spine for Joy, to also further telegraph the large letter on the spine mechanic that's going to come into play later. I would discourage that, because what could happen is the players seeing the first large letter and then getting clues in the mansion once they're in there will think, oh, okay, so we need to put all the letters together to come up with a command word. Okay, we know that J was on the first book, so be sure to keep that in mind. And then they've got this extra letter the whole time they're trying to figure it out. So don't do that. Just let the books in the mansion have the large letter, describe the cover in detail, and that be your connective tissue. Okay, in the foyer, the party meets Matrius, the person that they have come to track down with the adventure as written. And the whole impetus for them exploring the mansion, for having the adventure, for doing the fun thing, is Matrius saying, I will help you if you explore the mansion and find your way out. But I'm going to go because I know a way out. Never underestimate the player's ability to be too smart to have fun. And what I mean by that is there are going to be players or entire tables that in that moment are going to say, well, we know the command word to get back into the mansion. So how about we just leave with you, since you can leave, and we'll figure out the whole situation with the village, and then we'll come back and deal with this, because we have people like potentially dying, there's drought, there's famine, we don't have time to go gallivanting around a mansion when you have a way out. Why would we do that? You're going to have players that say stuff like that. So don't let them talk their way out of a good time. So what I would do, how I would tweak this adventure to prevent that from happening, because it will happen, is I would go with the teleportation option that I talked about, where you say the command word and boom, you're teleported into the mansion. Matrius, being in the foyer, is teleported out of the mansion into the study room. And then just have the barrier between the planes be thin enough to where they can still talk to Matrius through like this wavy window into the study room. And then basically just have like the magics are keeping the imp figurine that Matrius took with him in figurine form until the barrier begins to close fully, and then it can come to life, he can scream, and the party can move on. So that would be how I would do it. Additionally, you could just have Matrius step through the portal, and then the portal closes as soon as he steps through. But then again, you're messing with the player's agency at that point by saying, okay, yes, we will go with your way. No, we won't, because I'm just going to shut it down, which will sour your players pretty quickly. So I would go with the teleportation option. Don't give them the option to talk their way out of doing the adventure, essentially. Especially if you're running this as a one-shot, because then it's going to be done in 20 minutes and okay, cool. Hope you all had fun. So yeah, with the foyer, I would play it that way. And before we move on, if you are enjoying this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up down below and subscribe to the channel. Like I said at the top, we're going to be doing a video for each of the Candlekeep Mysteries adventures, and you're not going to want to miss out. It's going to be a lot of fun. Additionally, we do other DMing tips and tricks and class breakdowns and all that kind of stuff. And we have an actual play here on the channel, Kyber Shards, that you definitely want to check out. So there's lots of stuff. Subscribe down below so you don't miss anything. And if you want to talk about this stuff in real time or ask me D&D questions, I do stream on Twitch every Saturday and Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central and Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. Come by, hang out. I would love to have you. All right, now we're in the library. I'm just going to be going in the rooms as listed in the adventure, not by likelihood that the party is going to go into them, just to keep things simple so you can follow along in your copy of the adventure. So in the library, first off, there is a check that uses a passive perception score, which kudos on that. However, then the adventure immediately says a thorough search will find the book anyway, so why have it happen quicker if people are going to be searching thoroughly in the library? If there is no ticking clock mechanism in the overall adventure to reward the players for doing things quickly and efficiently through skill checks, then why have the skill check? So I would add a ticking clock mechanism to the adventure. Basically, spoiler alert, Mattress is dead when the party finally gets out of the mansion, as is written, which we're going to get to that later. But I would add a ticking clock mechanic to where if the party is out of there in a certain amount of time, essentially I would write down all of the checks that can avoid a long search, like in the library, in the study, places like that. And basically, if they pass enough of them, they have gone through quickly enough to where Mattress is still alive when they get out, if you want to play it that way. Additionally, you could also look at some of the things around the mansion, like the mimic that's in the dining room. Maybe if they get through the library and the study room quick enough before they go to the dining room, then the mimic isn't there. The mimic is still in its jar down in the basement. So that's a possibility. But just come up with some reason why these checks are beneficial for the party to do things quickly. Otherwise, there's no point. They can take their time searching the house. In the exercise room, an animated broom is a fun thing to just have ambiently being around a mansion. It's very Beauty and the Beast-esque / Fantasia, but it's fun. But this combat encounter is so easy to not trigger. Like, a party member has to either physically attack the broom or try to grab it, which, if you're trying to avoid a whole lot of combat unless the party is running around just being silly, then that's fine. But if you are wanting to have them build up some experience, potentially level up during this adventure, if you don't require a long rest for the party to level up their characters, then you may want to have this combat happen. If the library, the exercise room, and the dining room combats all happen, they're already level 2. And so if you want to have this be a more sure thing, it's the exercise room. The broom was like a sparring partner for Fistandia. So as soon as they touch something on the weapons rack, that's what triggers it, because, you know, now it's time to spar. So that's one way that you could have an easier trigger for this if you want there to be a bit more combat in this part of the adventure. In the study, I do like that it just says after 30 minutes of searching, this is all the information the party can find from looking through various books and things like that. If you're adding the ticking clock mechanic that we talked about in the library, I would add a check here or a passive bonus where you notice things quicker, just to keep that moving along. And also there is a potential danger here when you have after 30 minutes of studying and searching, once you read that, you might have some of your more punchy characters, your barbarians, your fighters, who are like, okay, while they do that, I'm going to go walk around and see if I can find anything out that doesn't involve reading, because reading is boring. There may be a temptation on your part to discourage this kind of behavior. I wouldn't. I would leave this up to the party. I would leave it up to the party dynamics through role play or whatever, because a split party can be fun. A split party can be a lot of fun. You could have, if this will likely be one of, if not the first room that the party actually goes into based on the map layout. And so having the barbarian like leave and go walking down the hallway into the library, and then after a couple beats come sprinting down the hallway chased by a swarm of books, or from the dining room chased by a mimic chair. Those can be really fun and engaging moments that you don't want to try to get ahead of your players on. Let them do silly things. Let them split up and wander off in this strange house that they've never been in before, because it can be a lot of fun. Okay, the kitchen. Coriander and cumin are wonderful homunculi that were made by Fistandia and Freyot, and this is your opportunity to do the third kind of pillar of D&D. We've had some combat at this point where this whole thing is exploration. Now we're getting some role play, and I would really ham it up with these two, the two homunculi that are servants just tripping over themselves because they haven't seen anybody in so long and they're desperate to help out. And yeah, for this being a level one shot, this might be at least one person at your table, if not everybody at your tables, first experience with D&D, at least 5th edition. And this is a great moment to kind of let the role-playing and fun NPCs aspect of the game shine. I wouldn't rush through this. I would let this moment live in itself and let the party engage with these two. It does have a sidebar about how the fact that the homunculi are here indicates that Fistandia and Freyot are alive still. And so if you are going to be expanding your story beyond this adventure, I would have whoever is proficient in Arcana just know that, be able to be like, wait a second, I've read about this spell. If you want to have it be a check, that's fine, but it could be a potential plot hook to further drive the party forward by just giving them that piece of information. So just something to think about in that regard. Okay, now we get into the dining room with the Mimic fight. Now, the Mimic fight in and of itself isn't anything extraordinary, although it is a little easy. I ran this encounter a couple dozen times with a 4-player party of a fighter, a ranger, a cleric, and a wizard was the party composition. And one party member went down one time, and the party never lost the encounter. And I did some variables on the Mimic side because the Mimic only has 30 hit points. So yes, the Mimic could in theory one-shot some level 1 party members. The wizard, for example, has I think 8 hit points is what the wizard had that I was using, and the Mimic can deal 11 points of damage on a single attack if it rolls max damage. Granted, if it crits, it'll deal even more. So that is a possibility. However, in a lot of encounters that I ran, you had 2 or 3 party members going before the Mimic even got a turn, and a lot of times they took the Mimic out before it even got to fully act. So keep that in mind. What I would do, I would have the modified monster card in front of me with the 30 hit point and the only 10 DC to escape the grapple. But I would note normal 58 max hit points, normal 13 DC. See how the first round of combat goes. If your party is dealt 35 points of damage before the Mimic even gets to go, maybe switch over to the 58 HP version. It's the exact, nothing else changes except the amount of hit points. So you're not swapping out the entire monster. Maybe do that because the Mimic is an iconic D&D monster. And if you're having party members experience this game for the first time, you want this encounter to be memorable. You don't want this encounter to be like, oh, okay, you guys took it out before it even got a chance to act. At least give it one round to do something cool, to have the seat cushion lift up and the tongue come out. So yeah, that's what I would do to kind of tweak this fight. I'm not saying definitely go with the full powered version because, you know, anything can happen. I didn't run this encounter enough times to be exhaustive in every possibility. So there's a chance that coming out of the first round of combat is like, oh crap, nobody hit and it critted and everything's bad. So just keep that in mind, keep that extra hit points just off to the side and maybe plug it in if things are going really well for the player. Okay, next up is the Arboretum. This one is the fairy dragons, and keep in mind that this is not meant to be a combat encounter. The fairy dragons are playful, they're mischievous, and the homunculi do communicate this to the party according to the adventure as written. But I would perhaps introduce some mechanics to pacify the fairy dragons because they are designed to harangue the players as they try to pass through with their breath and all that kind of stuff. So introduce animal handling, nature, persuasion even, to try and get the fairy dragons to let the party pass. Yes, you're very cute, you had your fun, we need to go. And do that so that the party can progress and not get too frustrated and try to kill the fairy dragons, which they might just anyway. So yeah, just introduce some mechanics from a non-combat standpoint to deal with this and then move along. Okay, upstairs, the lab and the planetarium are fine. They set up a cool puzzle that the party needs to do in order to get access to the chain library, or they can go through the attic and drop down through the ceiling by breaking their way through. But, you know, nothing really too remarkable. I wouldn't change anything about the puzzle. I think it's well done. I think the planetarium room is super cool the way it's described. But I do also like that they've introduced multiple paths forward. You can go through the puzzle, or you can go up, over, and drop down. So I do appreciate that they introduced multiple paths forward here. Now, when it comes to the chained library, this room is a armful of gifts underneath a Christmas tree. It is so many plot hook potentials moving forward. The chained library is described as the shelves containing Fistandia's most treasured knowledge. And if you have a warlock that you know is going to be taking Pact of the Tome, if you have a wizard that you want to give a spell book to so they can get a couple more spells, if you need a plot hook to thrust the party into a larger campaign centered around Fistandia, or some hidden forbidden knowledge, or anything, this room can provide all of that for you and more. Now, the adventure is written says that a book cannot be removed from the shelves without being destroyed, but, you know, maybe one of them secured poorly. So after they defeat the animated chained library monster, maybe one of these books falls out, all these books fall out, whatever you want to do. And that can be a really great tool for pushing your party forward in a direction. And also upstairs is the trophy room and bedroom. The only thing I really want to note is in the trophy room, remember the flying swords activate for combat if anything in the room is touched, and there is one of the puzzle books in there. So they're probably going to have to deal with this combat unless they're going around memorizing the letters on the spines of the book, in which case I would be concerned that one of my players read this adventure and knows about the flying swords. Being like, no, don't touch the book. Just, okay, the letter B is on it. So yeah, we'll just remember that. Be like, why? Why wouldn't you pick up the book? Tell me. So that's the only, but I just wanted to make note of that it says if anything in the room is touched, there is a book in there that will be touched. So roll initiative. Now downstairs. One thing, the way to get downstairs is finding a secret door in the study. There is a check to find the lever for the secret door. Once again, if they don't find it, they can't progress in the adventure. So you need to account for that and ways for them to get around it. Basically, I would allow for the check to find it quickly. Once again, note this is one of those other checks for the ticking clock mechanic. If they succeed, great, you find it right away. If not, maybe 45 minutes of searching when you're doing that initial 30-minute studying will find the lever for the secret door. But you can't just leave it as written where if the party fails on the check, sorry, you can't keep going. But once they get downstairs, something to keep in mind, the furthest that they need to go downstairs is the alchemical laboratory. The book is in there, and if this is the last place they're going, they're going to find that book, realize, oh, it says Liberty, let's go, and they won't explore the rest of the downstairs section. If you really want them to explore the full basement and get to see all the creepy stuff down there, then just move the book. Like, okay, you guys went in the alchemical laboratory first. Nope, no book in there. Oh, now you're going to this room. Nope, no book there. Oh, the third room. Yep. Oh, what do you know? There's the book. So maybe one of the crawling hands is like holding it and they have to go wrench it off and then it comes alive and you can have the combat. So yeah, just something to keep in mind is that the downstairs section is not linear. It's not like they have to go through each room. They can go into the rooms in any order, so they might go into one room, find the book, and then just leave. So once the party gets out of the mansion, they find that Matrius is dead. The imp is hiding in the corner invisible and jumps out to attack as soon as the party exits. The first party member that exits actually and attacks. This would be super deflating for a lot of parties, especially ones that push themselves. That was like, we have to go help Matrius. We have to help him. And they missed out on a lot of the charms of this mansion. If they rush through all of that for Matrius to just be dead, it's going to be a real bummer for the end of the adventure. So I would, if you go in with the ticking clock mechanic, then Matrius can be alive. Or if they failed enough checks to where he's dead, then you can explain it was up to the dice. It wasn't you just being mean. Like you all failed this check, and this check, which means you took way too long and the imp was able to finish Matrius off. If the party does come in and Matrius is alive, I would still have the imp be hiding and just say there's some arcane lock on the door that can detect that there's a fiend in the room and it won't open until it's dealt with, and then the party along with Matrius can fight the imp. Or if Matrius is dead and the imp is hiding, you can still have that mechanic there. So yeah, I would be flexible with Matrius's death and what you do with that, because the way it's written, I was disappointed reading. It was like, oh, okay. Well, the whole reason they came to Candlekeep was to find Matrius, so this whole quest was just for nothing. which it's fine to have quests that don't go the party's way. But for the first quest, your first adventure as a party to be an utter failure is a pretty big bummer. So that's the only thing I'll say on that. So overall, I really like this adventure. I think it's well written. I do think there are some things that need tweaking to really make it flow well, which I went over in this video. What did you all think? Let me know down in the comments below. Are there things that you would tweak for this adventure if you were running it? Let me know. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're going to have lots of these videos coming out in the coming weeks. So please subscribe, like the video, and I will see you next time.